tonight's guest is Kim. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vic. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great having you. Thank you for your time. Kim, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
Well, not too much exciting to say. I'm 64 years old. I'm a retired nurse. I work as a sound therapist, which is a long, drawn-out story. I'm just your typical single 64-year-old, ornery old woman. I have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and 1 great-granddaughter. I live in the Kansas City area, and I've lived here most of my life, and had my family here, and I work in the community, and I like to play drums. I do like to be out in nature a lot. I like to camp. I go to a lot of festivals. I don't do a lot of like deep woods camping, but I do camp out quite a bit. But now that I'm pretty much single, my son kind of frowns on me going camping by myself. So it's stuck with the festivals. I garden. I'm outside a lot. I walk with my dogs a lot. So that's pretty much it. My life is pretty down to earth, simple, and filled up with a lot of fun things.
Sounds like you do a lot of fun things. Yeah, it sounds like you're awfully well-rounded. Kim, you had reservations about contacting me before you actually did. Why did you have those reservations?
Well, number one, my story is not as exciting as most of the ones I hear on your show. And of course, I didn't even know what this creature was until I started listening to your show. So I just was thinking, this isn't a very fleshed out, exciting story. That's why I hesitated that. And I didn't know really what to say or if I really even wanted to tell anybody.
Well, excitement has nothing to do with it. They're all exciting, but if it happened, that's all that matters. The fact that you come on, and if you want to just talk with me about it in private, that's totally fine. If you want to talk with me and come on the show, that's also fine. But how exciting an experience is, that's not any kind of a qualification for doing a show. They're all important, so if you ever have an interest, whoever it is, then by all means, I'd love to have that person on. You have a history of seeing things that aren't supposed to exist. Have you ever played with a Ouija board?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of Ouija boards.
Do you think having all the strange encounters you've had have any correlation to playing with one?
No, not at all.
You don't. A lot of people feel that if you do play with a Ouija board, that just opens up all kinds of doorways and you just open yourself up for experiences like that. Why don't you think any of that is true?
Because I believe in the surety of intent. I feel like most of the people that are having trouble with the Ouija boards have given it the energy and the directive to do that. I don't believe the spirit world has control over us at all.
Well, I hope you're right on that. Do you think having all the strange encounters you had prepared you in a way for the Dogman encounter you're going to tell us about tonight?
No, I wouldn't say that. Probably would have been the other way around if I'd known more what I was seeing, because most of the other items in my life were later in life after that. So that's a no.
Talking about those strange experiences, what was the strangest experience that's happened to you?
The strangest experience. Well, I've actually experienced hauntings personally up front. And I'm not talking about ghost hunting. I'm talking about hauntings. And I had a period of time in my I'd say from the time I was 19 till I was about 34, 33, 34, on and off, I would see things like I told you, if you remember, they were sort of related to something like the Mothman. I would see figures back off the road, standing at a distance, all dressed in black constantly in the corner of my eye, whether I was driving or not. And they were at a distance. And then a few years later, they were closer. And then eventually they wore out. And then a few years later after that, they came back and they were on and off. And I never knew what they were, except that I'm not going to claim to be psychic or that I see the dead. But when I close my eyes, I see people and I can't get them to speak to me. I do believe in those kinds of gifts. And I'm not going to brag and say I have those gifts, but I don't know if I was seeing the dead or not, but none of that has to do anything with the Ouija board.
I hope it doesn't.
Well, I know it doesn't. I have a Ouija board right here behind me on a shelf, but I have 5 different spirit boards. So if I was afraid of spirit boards, I wouldn't have 5 of them.
Holy cow, 5 of them. Collect the whole set.
Well, they're all different, but yeah, mostly collecting.
I'd say you do collect the whole set. Wow. And speaking of that, you've been into the witchcraft scene since you were 12. Do you think your encounter is related to that in any way?
No, not at all.
It's funny, some people who get into the Dogman phenomenon, or Sasquatch for that matter, they come to these conclusions and they're convinced it has to be this way or it's got to be that way. They'll tell you that if you have a Dogman encounter, they're definitely demonic, or this is definitely the case, but we're just guessing about so many things to do with them, so who really knows what's behind all this?
Well, at this point in my life, I have to be truthful. I don't believe in Satan, but that's because of my spiritual beliefs. But back in the day when I saw the Dogman, I was a confused little Catholic girl. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic schools, and because of the rumors that were running around down in that area, I thought I was seeing Satan. I had never heard of a Dogman. Now, I had heard of Sasquatch, Bigfoot. There was a whole run of movies back in the 70s, the Boggy Creek Monster and all that stuff. And I just ate it up. There was also a big run of witch movies and things, and I ate all that up too. But I don't consider any of it related. I think it's all individual. I mean, it might be related, but I don't think so. I can't see any reason to put it together as related. I just think it's individual experiences.
Yeah, you just might be right about that. Your encounter happened in a place that had a reputation for strange things. Please expand on that for us.
Oh my gosh, yes. I live in a metropolitan area. We've got Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri here. So this place is huge, and over the years, everything's grown together. But we still have a lot of rural area, a lot of farm area, a lot of back roads, especially out between Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County, which is where my actual encounter happened. Down in that area, it's Kansas Highway 5, and it runs between rural Wyandotte County on that's the north side, and rural Leavenworth County on the eastern side. It runs down along the Kansas River bottom. And the town down there is Walcott. There's a lot of odd activities down there and a lot of stories. And there's a family that was murdered. The son is the Andrew family. The son murdered his sister and his parents. And this story is supposed to be equal to In Cold Blood, but it's not as popular. So that's kind of the way it started. And also, it's down there along the river, and there's some caves. They're not very deep, but the kids would hang out in the caves. There's a lot of satanic panic going on. It was the 70s. So between the caves and the murder, and there's a mysterious farm, the Barton Farm. It's down below the dam of Wyandotte County Lake that was always locked up, and there were always stories. Now, none of this is my experience. These are just the things I was spinning around in as a teenage girl. And, you soak it in. You know how kids are. We go for the sensation. And I always thought that being in the caves was scandalous till I found out my mother actually had ever been there as a girl too. But I just, we thought we were getting by with stuff, and we ran those back roads. And my boyfriend was a country boy, and he drove an old farm truck, and we ran those roads. It was late July, and I think 1974. I was between 16 and 17, and he and I were spending a lot of time together because he was going off to the Army and I was going to go to nursing school. And so we were spending a lot of time together, and we would just drive around and run the roads. And you know how teenagers do. They find little dark spots to kind of be all over, but we won't talk about that. So that's what we would do. We were running our area. It's a country highway. The trees don't hang over it. It's well kept. There's spaces on both sides of the roads, like maybe 12 feet off before the actual wooded areas start. And they have ditches, but lots and lots and lots of wood, lots and lots and lots of farms. And it's hilly. It has soft hills, and a lot of it is in the river valley. And the big hills that go up from where the river valley stops, and then you go up into the the hills. And Wyandotte County Lake is hilly. It's actually very beautiful green. It's a beautiful area. The night we were out, it was beautiful. It was a summer night. We had the windows down on the truck, and we were just cruising along. You ready for my story?
Sure, by all means.
Okay, well, we were cruising along. I was playing with the radio. I was sitting next to him, so I was right in the middle of the seat next to him. That's what we kids do. And I was playing with the radio, and he was always griping at me because I didn't like his music. He'd say, well, you fix it. So I'm messing with the radio, and I feel him startle. He jumps. His body jumps. And I'm half bent down looking at the radio. As I sit up, I'm looking straight up into the slant of the windshield, and there is this creature. This creature's already in front of the truck. He's probably taken his first step. And I look straight up into this creature, about 10 foot tall. I'll describe him in a minute, but 10 foot tall, and he's just walking in front of the truck. He's not even looking at us. And as we approach, I think the first time I saw him, we were maybe 20 feet from him. And as we got closer, we got to maybe 10 foot from him before he had time to take 2 more steps. And by that time, he was on the other side of the road. So you're talking 3 strides to cross this highway. And how wide is a highway? 24 feet? I don't know. But anyway, he took 3 strides, and he was on the other side of the road. And we had our windows down. We didn't even consider it. Both the windows were down the truck. Neither one of us even thought about this till later. So my boyfriend's slowing down because he's in shock. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm saying, no, don't stop. Let's go. Take me home right now. And as I'm watching this creature, it goes to the other side of the road. It turns around and looks at us and just stands there and looks at us as I drive away. It stood there just as straight up tall and just watched us. It had red eyes. He did nothing except just walk across the highway and turn around and look at us. And he stood there, and I watched him. I turned around and looked at him through the back window of the truck, and he didn't move. I mean, we were way, way, way out of sight before I ever saw an indication that he moved off the road. But anyway, back to the creature. He was, I'd say 10 foot tall, and I'm taking that from the size of the truck because this is a farm truck, and they didn't have little tires, and they weren't close to the ground. This was just an old farm truck, and it was really tall because it took me a lot of effort to get up into this truck. Didn't have running boards, and I almost had to run and jump up into the seat. So I'm saying this creature was 10 foot tall, and it had dog's feet. I don't know if there were claws on the feet. I don't remember that, but they were dog's feet. They were huge. If they were human feet, they would have been like a size 12. And then he had a knee. He had a knee on his leg. And they weren't skinny legs. They were pretty built legs, except down at the bottom where it bent and came down into the foot. But the feet were huge. And he was standing straight up, but he was just a little bit curved. I don't know if that's the natural stance. And I'm seeing him from the side, totally from the side. I'm seeing all this. And his arms hung down past his knees, and he had claws, long claws, maybe an inch, and long fingers, hands, not paws, hands. Now, I didn't see a thumb. I saw 5 fingers hanging. One was a little shorter than the others, but he did not have an opposable thumb, but he did have what it looked like a hand. And he's just walking along, just swinging his, like, he was in the middle of New York, sightseeing, just walking across the road. Beautiful, dark gray fur, maybe some black, but I saw gray. We had a gibbous moon that night, so there was quite a bit of light. There weren't any street lights, but I could see him pretty clearly. And I'm seeing him from the side, and he has a snout, pretty long snout, but not, I'd say wolfish looking. I've heard shepherd, but I see wolf. I pay a lot of attention to wolves. I support a lot of wolf saving groups and stuff. So I'm saying wolf because I've always loved wolves, and this brings wolf up to me, not dog, but a doggy looking face, long snout. And he had ears, but at that point in time, I didn't see the ears until clearly, and I'll describe that, as after he walks across the road, and he did not have a tail. Because I saw him. I saw his back end. He did not have a tail. Very wide shoulders, very built chest, tall, standing up pretty straight. It's pretty amazing after I found out what this thing was, how human it looks in its torso. I didn't see a neck, didn't have a tail. Anyway, he crosses the road and he just turns around nonchalantly and is looking at us. Well, as he's looking at us, I can see his face better and I can see the snout better. And he has longish fur around his head. On his chest and his tummy, belly area, the fur doesn't look that long. But as he walked across the road, I saw the fur down his back. And when he turned around, I could see the fur up over his head. But his ears, tall, I'd say 3 inches tall, and they were both turned in towards each other, straight up. But they bowed in towards each other, and I thought I was looking at Satan. I thought those were horns when I first saw this thing. And then the red eyes didn't help, because there was a rumor about the Satanists doing rituals down there in the caves and stirring up Satan. And there was a rumor about Satan walking around down there in the Walcott Bottoms. So when I saw this guy, and I did not see if it was a guy or not, I'm just thinking because it was such a huge creature. So I can't tell you it was male for sure or not. But anyway, that's why I thought what I was looking at was Satan until many years later. And I started hearing about your show and stuff just here recently. Did I realize, or did I even start thinking about this guy again? And yes, it scared me to death. It really did. Didn't talk about it. I tried to get my boyfriend to talk about it, but he wouldn't. I think he said something to his dad about it, and his dad told him, just don't bring that up, and you didn't see it. And of course, I never said anything to my parents because I thought I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and I would have gotten punished for being where I was. So I didn't say anything. And anyway, what do you want to know, Vic?
Well, you said it had red eyes. When you turned around and looked out that back window, did it look to you like its eyes were backlit, or were they just red and shining?
It's like they were well, okay, it might have been the taillights, but they were glowing. It like they had a light to them. Otherwise, I couldn't have seen them because his face would have been in black. So the only thing lit up on his face were those eyes.
Yeah, I can only imagine how creepy of a view that must have been. Was its head disproportionate in size compared to its body?
I think the whole top of the body is disproportionate to the lower. The lower half and the top half were almost like they could have been two different animals, because the top half was so prominent. The shoulders, the arms, everything. And then it comes down to this little waist. And I'm not saying it had tiny legs, but the top of the body, yeah, the head was pretty large. I'd say the head was as big as half of the width of the shoulders.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
He was a big dude.
Yeah, sounds like it. You told us about the fur it had, but was it patchy or thick? Thick, really, really thick. It didn't look scraggly. It didn't look dirty. There was no smell. And like I said, the windows were down, and it was a breezy summer night, a warm summer night. No smell. It sounds like it looked like it just left the salon. It looked that way.
Yes, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say. What can you tell us about its teeth? Could you see them?
Oh, the teeth. Yeah. I could see the teeth. The mouth was not open, but I could see the teeth. I could see the teeth come down and overhang the bottom lip. They come down past the top lip and overhung the bottom lip. Yeah, pretty long teeth. I can't imagine how big those teeth really were, because there was at least a good inch, and they were sharp. They were just as sharp as those claws. If he was at the salon, he was sharpening his teeth in his claws.
Can you imagine what it must go through if it bites its lip?
That would be terrible. It would puncture. I don't know how it manages with that mouth anyway, with those overlapping teeth like that. I know that it has the canine type teeth it looked like a carnivore that would grind and eat, could just rip, just bite and rip whatever it's going to eat. But I don't know how it would manage that with those teeth. They were just crazy huge.
It couldn't be easy to deal with them, that's for sure. You touched on this a bit ago. You told your mother about your encounter for the first time recently, but how'd that conversation go?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm kind of out there on my stuff. We've already covered that. I'm very diverse, very open-minded, very seeking. I research. I have a huge amount of curiosity. And a lot of it I bounce off my mom. A lot of it's for shock factor because she tickles me to death. She's my best friend. And we have a lot of conversations, and we have a joke between us because I'll go out there and we'll bring up a subject. And then when it's over, I'll say, well, that was lecture 102.2. And we have another joke that says, I'm sorry, I didn't prepare a lecture today. So we're always talking about different things. And I had told her that I was watching your show. I've been talking about it for months. And I'll teasingly say, Mom, I'm going to go home and watch Dogman Encounters tonight for a few hours. And I'll tell her, I have told her about your shows. I've given her small, little synopsises of some of the shows. But anyway, I told her a long time ago that I asked her one day, I said, do you wonder why I watch Dogman Encounters? Or listen, excuse me, not watch. And she said, well, yeah. I said, well, one of these days I'll tell you. And I did. The day after I called you and talked to you originally, I went to Mom and I just decided I'm going to tell her because I want to know what she has to say. Well, as we were talking about it and I was describing where we had been, because of course this is my first confession to her about ever having been there and seen this. And as I tell her my story and we're talking about the Walcott caves and stuff, I'm getting no response out of her. She's just looking at me almost like she'd heard the story already. And I said, Mom, do you know those Walcott caves? And she goes, oh, yeah. I said, do you know about the murders? She goes, oh, yeah. I said, you've been down there? She goes, oh, yeah. I said, well, have you ever seen anything like this? She says, I don't think so. And I don't believe her.
Makes you wonder.
I'll get it out of her.
Yeah, with as much as you two talk, I'm sure you will. At least I hope you do.
Well, she used to walk the railroad tracks all up and down through Leavenworth. And back then it wasn't like it is now. So who knows what they saw as kids.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Considering the fact your encounter happened almost 50 years ago, has all the time this passed made this any easier to deal with?
No, not technically, no, because I always have a fear of back roads. I don't think I told you this. I have to drive back roads because I have a sight impairment caused from having had COVID 2 years ago. So I can't drive on highways or bright lit roads. And I am forced to drive back roads at this point. And I've always had a fear of back roads, and I have to drive them now to be off of the main roads. So I'm always afraid of things jumping out in front of me. I'm always afraid of the things I see out of the corner of my eye, but not just because of the Dogman, but because of the other things that I used to see out of the corner of my eye. But yeah, back roads, yes, I would say yes, it's caused me a problem. And I don't like to drive after dark. And I stay completely out of the area where I saw this thing. I won't even go through there in the daylight. So yes, it just gives me the creeps. The few times I have tried to go that way, I just feel something and I can't do it. So I jump back on 635. I've tried to come that way a few times, but I jump back on the main highway and don't go down through there. I can't.
Well, it goes without saying, I'm so sorry to hear that you have to drive those back roads. That's horrible.
Yeah, it's better than not being able to drive at all.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's true. Growing up, you told me that you spent a lot of time with what you call country people. I've got to ask you, Kim, what's the difference between a country person and a country person?
A country person would be me. A country person would be my boyfriend. I grew up on the edge of the country. They grew up in the country. They tossed hay. I just wished I could.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny you pulled that out.
Now you know I couldn't let that go.
Okay.
Had to ask you about that. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Kim, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Well, I learned something and I'm working on it now. And that was that it was an innocent encounter. This huge creature didn't pay any attention to us, didn't even reach out to do anything to us, and just went on about his life. And so he has as much right to be here as we do. And like I said, I didn't even know what he was until recently. So I guess that's it. They're scary. They affect your life. They get into your head and they get into your heart, but they're really not out there to terrify people. They're just trying to live like we do.
Now you understand why I tell people, for the most part, if you have to have an encounter with the Dogman, the bigger the better. And that's because the bigger the Dogman, the more mature it is, the less likely it's going to be to try and get a response out of you, to terrorize you. So, yeah, that's why I say that. But having said that, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing that experience with us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Vic.
Thanks again so much. Have a great night.